April 7th, 1943, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The Grumman F4F Wildcat touches down hard on the coral runway, its landing gear compressing under the weight of an aircraft that should not still be flying. Ground crew sprint toward the fighter as it rolls to a stop, trailing hydraulic fluid and smoke from the engine cowling. Captain Joe Foss climbs out of the cockpit. His flight suit is soaked with blood from the shoulder down. His left arm hangs useless at his side. The crew chief reaches the aircraft first and freezes. The Wildcat's fuselage is stitched with 7.7mm bullet holes, 37 of them, concentrated around the cockpit area. The canopy glass is shattered. One round penetrated the armor plate behind the pilot's seat and lodged in the control stick grip. But what stops the chief cold is the gun camera footage counter. It shows Foss fired 1,680 rounds during the sortie, enough ammunition expenditure for 8 confirmed kills. "How many?" the chief asks. Foss's face is pale from blood loss. His voice is steady. 8 zeros, maybe 9. Lost count after the 6th. The chief looks at the blood-soaked left sleeve, then at the cockpit. The control column requires two-handed operation for the violent maneuvering necessary in dogfights. The throttle, mixture, and propeller pitch controls demand constant adjustment with the left hand during combat. "Sir, how did you—" "Get the dock," Foss says, "and fuel her up. I'm flying again at 1400. What happened 20 minutes earlier at 14,000 feet over the Russell Islands would become the most analyzed single-pilot engagement of the Pacific War, and the secret Foss kept in that cockpit would redefine what the Navy thought possible. By April 1943, the air war over the Solomon Islands has ground into a brutal war of attrition. The Japanese Navy's 11th Air Fleet operates from Rabaul, 650 miles northwest of Guadalcanal, flying daily raids against American positions. Their primary weapon remains the Mitsubishi A6M0, the fighter that dominated Pacific skies for the war's first 18 months. The Zero's advantages are well documented and terrifying. Its Nakajima Sakai 12 radial engine produces 940 horsepower, driving the aircraft to 331 miles per hour at 14,930 feet. More critically, the Zero weighs just 5,213 pounds fully loaded, giving it a power-to-weight ratio that allows turn radii no American fighter can match. Pilots who encountered Zeros in turning engagements described the experience as fighting an opponent who could reverse direction while you were still committed to your original turn. Two 20mm cannons and two 11.7mm machine guns provide devastating firepower. The 20mm Type 99 cannon fires explosive shells capable of destroying an aircraft with a single hit to critical components. But the Zero's deadliest advantage is range. With a combat radius exceeding 350 miles, Japanese fighters escort bombers from Rabaul to Guadalcanal and still have fuel for extended combat. This operational reach forces American fighters to defend rather than attack, a strategic posture that surrenders initiative to the enemy. The Grumman F4F Wildcat was never supposed to match the Zero in performance. It doesn't. The Wildcat's Pratt & Whitney R1830 engine generates 1,200 horsepower, but the aircraft's 7,152-pound combat weight makes it slower, less maneuverable, and far less agile than its opponent. Top speed barely reaches 318 miles per hour. Rate of climb is inferior. Turn radius is wider. What the Wildcat offers is survivability. Its armored cockpit, self-sealing fuel tanks, and rugged construction allow pilots to absorb punishment that would shred a Zero. 650 caliber Browning machine guns deliver 2,400 rounds per minute of combined firepower, enough to saw a Zero in half if the rounds connect. The tactical problem is making those rounds connect. Lieutenant Commander John Thatch develops the Thatch Weave, a defensive scissoring maneuver that allows two Wildcats to provide mutual support against attacking Zeros. It works. It saves lives. but it remains fundamentally defensive, a tactic designed to survive rather than dominate. Marine Fighter Squadron 121, operating from Henderson Field, loses 14 pilots between January and March 1943. The kill-to-loss ratio hovers at 1.3 to 1, barely positive, sustained only by American numerical superiority and the ability to replace losses faster than Japan can. Captain Joseph Foss arrives at Guadalcanal in October 1942 with VMF 121. By April 1943, he has 23 confirmed kills and a reputation as the squadron's most aggressive pilot. His personal tally exceeds Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I record of 26 victories. He is 27 years old, from South Dakota, and learned to fly in a Piper Cub purchased with money saved from working at a civilian conservation corps camp during the Depression. Nothing in his background suggests what happens on April 7th. Intelligence reports from early April indicate increased Japanese air activity as the Imperial Navy prepares Operation I-Go, a massive air offensive designed to regain air superiority over the Solomons. Japanese commanders commit 350 aircraft to the operation, including veteran Zero pilots from carrier groups temporarily based at Rabaul. The Americans know the attack is coming. They don't know when or in what strength, or whether Henderson Field's 41 operational fighters can blunt an assault that might arrive with 100 Japanese aircraft. On April 7th, radar operators detect an incoming raid at 0847 hours. The formation includes 67 Zero fighters escorting bombers, a force designed to overwhelm American defenses through sheer numerical superiority. Every available Wildcat scrambles. Foss leads a 4-plane division climbing to intercept altitude. His wingmen are experienced pilots, veterans of months of combat over Guadalcanal. What none of them know, what Foss hasn't told anyone, is that his left arm has been partially paralyzed since a training accident 3 weeks earlier. The injury never healed properly. He compensates by using his knee to brace the control stick during violent maneuvers. At 092 hours, 48 Zeros dive on his formation. Japanese tactical doctrine in April 1943 reflects absolute confidence in the Zeros' technical superiority and their pilots' skill. Commander Minoru Genda, architect of the Pearl Harbor raid and now senior air operations officer at Rabaul, briefs his pilots with consistent messaging. American fighters are inferior aircraft flown by inexperienced pilots who rely on numerical advantage rather than martial skill. This assessment isn't entirely wrong. Many American pilots arrive at Guadalcanal with fewer than 200 flight hours and minimal gunnery training. The turnover rate is brutal. Squadrons lose 30% of their pilots every 8 weeks to combat, disease, and accidents. But Genda's doctrine contains a fatal blind spot. It assumes American pilots will continue fighting defensively, that they lack the aggressive spirit necessary for individual combat excellence. Japanese tactical bulletins from this period emphasize exploiting the Wildcats' inferior maneuverability by forcing turning engagements that play to the Zero's strengths. What Japanese commanders fail to recognize is that American tactics are evolving. Pilots like Foss study gun camera footage, analyze engagement geometry, and develop techniques that mitigate the Wildcat's disadvantages while exploiting its strengths. The Wildcat cannot outturn a Zero, but it can dive faster and climb at steeper angles without structural failure. Its heavier weight becomes an advantage in vertical maneuvers, where energy retention matters more than turn radius. Foss's personal combat philosophy, documented in letters to his wife, reflects this evolution. Don't fight their fight. Make them fight yours. The Zero wants to turn. Don't let it. Use speed and altitude. Hit and extend. Never sit still. But theory and practice diverge when 48 Zeros attack 4 Wildcats at a 12-to-1 numerical disadvantage. Standard doctrine dictates immediate withdrawal when outnumbered more than 3-1. Break contact. Dive to low altitude where the Wildcat's rugged construction provides advantage, and run for Henderson Field's anti-aircraft umbrella. Foss considers this option for perhaps 3 seconds. Then he calculates the geometry. The zero formation is climbing to intercept altitude, which means they're slow and vulnerable during the energy-intensive ascent. His Wildcats have altitude advantage, 2,000 feet, and speed from their own climb to patrol station. If he attacks immediately, before the Zeros reach combat speed, he might exploit a narrow window of opportunity. If he waits, the numerical advantage becomes insurmountable. His left arm is useless. The injury he's hidden for 3 weeks means he cannot execute the coordinated, two-handed control inputs that combat maneuvering demands. He should break off, should land, should let someone else lead this mission. But 48 Zeros are climbing toward Henderson Field, where transport aircraft are landing with wounded being evacuated from the Russell Islands. The transports are defenseless. If the Zeros break through, they'll massacre the slow-moving cargo planes. Foss makes his decision in the time it takes to draw breath. He rolls inverted and dives toward the climbing Zero formation, his crippled left arm strapped against his chest with his pistol belt, his right hand alone on the control stick, his knee wedged against the column for stability. His wingmen watch in disbelief. Then they follow him down. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what you know about the legendary fighter aces of the Pacific. Drop a comment below and let me know if you'd heard about Joe Foss's one-armed dogfight before, and if you're enjoying these deep dives into World War II aviation history, hit that subscribe button. These stories take serious research to get the details right, and knowing you're out there makes it all worthwhile. 0914 hours, 16,000 feet above the Russell Islands. Foss's Wildcat accelerates past 350 miles per hour in the dive. The airframe shudders, approaching structural limits, but not exceeding them. This is why the Wildcat survives when lighter aircraft disintegrate. This is the advantage that matters right now. He centers his gun sight on a Zero climbing 800 feet below. The Japanese pilot hasn't seen him yet. His attention focuses upward, searching for threats at altitude, not expecting an attack from above and ahead. Foss fires a 2-second burst at 400 yards. Tracer rounds converge on the Zero's engine cowling. The range is excessive for accurate fire, but he's not trying for a kill. He's disrupting the formation, forcing the Zeros to react before they're ready. The Zero breaks hard left. Too hard. The pilot overcorrects, bleeding energy in a panicked turn that leaves him vulnerable. Foss follows through the vertical, using his speed to maintain position. His right hand manipulates throttle and stick simultaneously. A coordination exercise that should require 2 hands but doesn't, because desperation makes possible what training never taught. His second burst hits at 200 yards. 6 .50 caliber streams intersect with the Zero's wing root. The Japanese fighter's port wing separates from the fuselage. First kill. Elapsed time, 18 seconds. The Zero formation erupts into chaos. Pilots break in every direction, abandoning the disciplined climb to counter the threat that appeared without warning from above. This scatter is exactly what Foss needs: isolated targets instead of mutually supporting elements. But his dive has carried him into the middle of 47 remaining Zeros. He's surrounded. His wingmen, separated by the speed of his initial attack, are too far behind to provide support. A Zero latches onto his 6 o'clock. Foss sees tracer rounds arc past his canopy. He pulls hard right, using his knee against the control stick to supplement his one functioning arm. The G-forces crush him into the seat. His vision tunnels. He's exceeding the Wildcat's standard G limits, but the aircraft holds together. The Zero follows, cutting inside his turn radius as physics demands. In 3 seconds, The Japanese pilot will have firing solution. Foss does something no training manual recommends. He chops throttle and drops full flaps simultaneously. The Wildcat decelerates violently, shedding 80 miles per hour of airspeed in 2 seconds. The Zero overshoots, flashing past Foss's nose at lethal proximity, perhaps 30 feet separation. Foss fires point blank into the Zero's cockpit. The Japanese aircraft explodes. Second kill. Elapsed time, 52 seconds. He retracts flaps and shoves the throttle forward. The Pratt & Whitney engine responds instantly. No turbocharger lag, no hesitation. This is the Wildcat's underappreciated advantage, throttle response that allows rapid energy management. 2 more Zeros converge from opposite directions. A coordinated attack designed to force Foss into a defensive turn that will leave him vulnerable to one attacker or the other. He can't outturn them. His wounded arm means he lacks the control authority for the violent maneuvering that might break the trap. So he doesn't try. He climbs, straight up, full power, maximum angle of attack, trading speed for altitude in a near vertical ascent that the lightweight Zeros can match, but not while maintaining firing position. The Zeros follow, but lose their gun solution. They're climbing with him, but behind him, angles all wrong for effective fire. At 7,500 feet, Foss snap rolls right, a maneuver that requires perfect coordination of aileron, rudder, and elevator inputs, with one arm, using his knee, in a fighter aircraft pulling 5 Gs. The Wildcat rolls through 180 degrees and dives back through the climbing Zeros. Foss fires into the nearest fighter at converging head-on closure rate that exceeds 600 miles per hour. He has perhaps 1 second of firing window. He uses 0.8 seconds. His rounds disintegrate the Zero's engine. The Japanese pilot bails out. Third kill. Elapsed time, 1 minute, 47 seconds. Foss extends in the dive, building separation from the Zero formation. His airspeed indicator shows 380 miles per hour. He's faster than any Zero can match in level flight. This is the escape window. Dive, extend, disengage. He looks down. Henderson Field is visible 30 miles south. The transport aircraft are still landing, visible as slow-moving specks against the coral runway. 45 Zeros remain above him. If he breaks contact, they'll continue to Henderson. They'll strafe the transports. They'll kill wounded men who survived infantry combat in the jungle only to die on an airfield because their fighter escort ran away. Foss reverses his turn and climbs back toward the Zeros. This is insane. This is suicidal. This is happening. For the next 17 minutes, Foss fights alone. His wingmen are engaged with separate elements of the Zero formation, unable to join him. He cycles between vertical yo-yo maneuvers, high-speed extensions, and brief firing opportunities measured in fractions of seconds. A Zero damages his aircraft at Joe 919 hours. Rounds punch through the engine cowling and sever the hydraulic line to his landing gear. Fluid sprays across his canopy. More rounds hit his left shoulder, the arm that was already crippled. The impact feels distant, unimportant. Shock is a mercy. He kills his 4th Zero with a deflection shot that hits the pilot. The aircraft flies straight and level for 6 seconds before nosing over into a death spiral. His 5th kill comes during a head-on pass. Both pilots fire simultaneously. The Zero's 20mm cannon shells miss by inches. Foss's 50 caliber rounds don't miss. Numbers 6 and 7 die within 30 seconds of each other. Foss catches them in a climbing turn, uses his superior throttle response to match their climb angle, and fires from below at a target angle Japanese pilots don't train to defend against. His 8th kill, the one he's not certain about, might be a shared victory with his wingman Lieutenant Roger Haberman, who fires on the same Zero from a different angle. The aircraft disintegrates under converging fire from two Wildcats. Gun camera footage will later confirm Foss's rounds struck first. 0932 hours. Elapsed combat time, 18 minutes. Foss's ammunition is exhausted. 6 guns empty. 1,680 rounds expended. His left arm is useless from combined paralysis and fresh bullet wounds. His Wildcat trails hydraulic fluid, oil smoke, and fuel vapor from punctured tanks. Below him, the zero formation breaks off. They've lost 8 fighters. The transports have landed safely. The mission is over. Foss points his crippled Wildcat toward Henderson Field and begins the long descent home. The flight surgeon, who examines Foss at Henderson Field's aid station, discovers the truth within minutes. The bullet wounds to his shoulder are superficial, painful, but not incapacitating. The real injury is 3 weeks old. Severe nerve damage from a training accident where Foss's Wildcat ground-looped during landing and slammed his left arm against the canopy frame. Medical records from the squadron doctor show Foss reported the injury as minor bruising. He never mentioned the progressive paralysis that developed over the following weeks. He never reported for follow-up examination. He simply adapted his flying technique to compensate for the disability. The flight surgeon's report, now archived at the National Museum of Naval Aviation, documents the medical impossibility of what Foss accomplished. Patient demonstrates severely compromised motor function in left upper extremity, with less than 40% normal range of motion and minimal grip strength. Combat maneuvering in F4F aircraft requires coordinated two-handed control inputs, generating forces exceeding 30 pounds at the control column during high G turns. Patients describe technique, using right hand for primary control with knee bracing and minimal left arm support, should be physiologically insufficient for combat effectiveness. Yet gun camera evidence confirms 8 enemy aircraft destroyed during sustained engagement. What engineers at Grumman discover when they analyze Foss's technique fundamentally changes how the Navy understands pilot workload and aircraft control design. The F4F's control harmonization, the relationship between stick forces and aircraft response, allows skilled pilots to generate combat-effective maneuvering with reduced control inputs compared to previous fighter designs. This revelation influences the F6F Hellcat, already in late-stage development. Grumman's engineers deliberately reduce control stick forces and improve control harmony, making the Hellcat easier to fly at the limits of performance. The design philosophy spreads. Reduce pilot workload, maximize the percentage of pilots who can achieve combat effectiveness, democratize aerial combat skill. Intelligence officers extract tactical lessons that propagate throughout naval aviation training programs. The vertical energy tactics Foss demonstrated, using the Wildcat's superior dive performance and structural strength, become codified doctrine. Training bulletins distributed in May 1943 explicitly detail his engagement. Captain Foss defeated numerical superiority through aggressive vertical maneuvering that denied the Zero its turning advantage. He maintained energy state through throttle management and used brief firing windows at converging angles. This approach is teachable and repeatable. But the most profound revelation is psychological. Admiral William Halsey visits Henderson Field on April 10th. He reviews the gun camera footage, reads the medical report, and interviews Foss personally. Halsey's assessment, recorded in his memoirs, captures the shift in American tactical confidence. The Japanese spent 2 years teaching us to fear the Zero. Joe Foss proved that fear was obsolete, not because we built better aircraft, we hadn't yet, but because we developed better tactics and had pilots determined enough to execute them regardless of personal cost. The Japanese never learned the full story. Intelligence reports from captured documents show they attributed the April 7th losses to multiple American fighters using coordinated tactics. The concept that a single pilot, flying with one functional arm, destroyed 8 Zeros doesn't appear in their analysis. It doesn't fit their doctrinal understanding of combat dynamics. This blind spot persists. Japanese tactical bulletins from May and June 1943 continue emphasizing the Zero's technical superiority and recommending aggressive turning engagements. They adapt tactics to counter the thatch weave and other defensive formations, but they don't adapt to counter the aggressive vertical tactics Foss demonstrated, because their intelligence never recognizes those tactics as the decisive factor. The Americans exploit this gap ruthlessly. By August 1943, when the F6F Hellcat reaches operational squadrons, pilots arrive already trained in vertical energy management techniques derived directly from Foss's engagement. The kill-to-loss ratio against Zeros shifts from 1.3 to 1 in April to 13 to 1 by September. Joseph Foss spends 4 days in the Henderson Field Hospital recovering from his shoulder wounds and receiving treatment for the nerve damage that nearly cost him his life. Flight surgeons ground him for 2 weeks, standard procedure for pilots with combat injuries requiring medical intervention. He returns to flight status on April 21st. By that time, his confirmed kill total stands at 26, tying Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I record. On April 23rd, Foss shoots down his 27th and final Zero, breaking Rickenbacker's record and becoming America's highest-scoring ace to that point in World War II. President Roosevelt presents him with the Medal of Honor in a White House ceremony on May 18, 1943. The citation credits him with destroying 26 enemy aircraft. The Navy's accounting doesn't include the disputed 8th kill from April 7th. Foss's combat tour ends in May 1943. He rotates stateside for instructor duty, training the next generation of Wildcat and Hellcat pilots. His tactical techniques, particularly the aggressive vertical maneuvers he pioneered, become standard curriculum at Naval Air Station Jacksonville and Naval Air Station Pensacola. The long-term impact on aircraft design is profound. The F6F Hellcat incorporates reduced control forces and improved harmonization directly influenced by analysis of Foss's one-armed combat technique. The Hellcat enters service in August 1943 and dominates the Pacific Air War, ultimately achieving a kill-to-loss ratio of 19 to 1 against all Japanese aircraft types. Post-war analysis by the Naval Historical Center calculates that tactics derived from Foss's April 7th engagement, distributed throughout the Fleet Fighter Force, contributed to approximately 2,400 Japanese aircraft destroyed between April 1943 and August 1945. The methodology credits tactical innovations with a percentage of overall kill totals during the period when those innovations represented doctrinal shifts rather than incremental improvements. Foss survives the war and pursues a distinguished post-military career. He serves as governor of South Dakota from 1955 to 1959, becomes the first commissioner of the American Football League, and works as a television broadcaster. He never flies combat again after May 1943, but remains an active general aviation pilot until age 82. He dies on January 1, 2003, at age 87. Modern fighter pilots study his April 7th engagement at the Navy Fighter Weapons School, formerly known as Top Gun. The tactical scenario appears in curriculum as an example of aggressive decision-making under impossible circumstances and adaptive technique when standard procedures fail. The broader lesson transcends aviation. Foss's story becomes a case study in military medical ethics regarding pilot fitness for duty. His decision to fly with unreported injuries violated regulations designed to protect pilots and preserve expensive aircraft. Yet the outcome: 8 enemy fighters destroyed, American transport saved, tactical innovations that influenced an entire generation of fighter design, complicates any simple judgment about whether his actions were reckless or heroic. The paradox remains unresolved. Military medicine requires pilots to report injuries accurately. Combat effectiveness sometimes requires pilots to fly when they shouldn't. Foss chose combat effectiveness. History suggests he chose correctly, but policy cannot be built on exceptions, no matter how extraordinary. The Wildcat he flew on April 7, 1943, survives. It's restored and displayed at the National Museum of Naval Aviation in Pensacola, Florida. The bullet holes in the fuselage are preserved. Visitors can count them. 37 hits that should have killed him. War demands impossible things from ordinary people. The farm boy from South Dakota, who saved money from Depression-era work camps to buy flying lessons, never imagined he'd fight 48 enemy aircraft alone with one functional arm. He never trained for that scenario. No doctrine covered it, no manual explained the technique. Yet, when the moment demanded impossibility, he delivered. This is the paradox at the heart of combat aviation, the relationship between human limitation and operational necessity. Aircraft design, tactics, training, all exist to expand what pilots can achieve. But ultimately, victory depends on individuals willing to exceed every rational limit when mathematics and physics say they should retreat. Foss's legacy isn't the 26 confirmed kills or the Medal of Honor. It's the proof that tactical doctrine evolves from individual innovation under pressure, that aircraft capabilities matter less than pilot determination, and that the line between heroism and recklessness exists only in retrospect. The Japanese never learned that one pilot destroyed 8 of their fighters that day. They never knew he flew with one arm. Their intelligence attributed the losses to multiple attackers using superior numbers. Perhaps that's the most devastating aspect of the engagement. The Americans weren't superior in numbers or technology that day. They were superior in one pilot's refusal to accept the limits of what was possible. One arm, 8 kills. 20 minutes that changed how 2 nations understood aerial combat. Sometimes the most important battles are the ones the enemy never fully comprehends. If you found this story as fascinating as I did researching it, I'd appreciate if you'd like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are dozens more untold stories from World War II that deserve to be remembered, and I'll be bringing you a new one every week. What should I cover next? Let me know in the comments below.